So I'm against rent stabilization, and here's why. I think it's a laudable goal for the government to say we have to make housing more affordable. Housing is a human right. I get all of that. The problem is that when you take a certain amount of inventory from the overall supply of housing in a city or in a community, and you say this bucket of housing, you're not going to be able to charge market rents for it. We're going to artificially depress the prices. Well, what does that do to the prices of the rest of the free market rents? Necessarily, they go up. Because if you're a landlord and you own a building that's got 20 units and 3 of them are rent stabilized and the other 17 are market rent, you still have the same expenses for the entire building. Your expenses for the rent stabilized units are not going to be lower, at least not materially lower, than your expenses for the other units. So a lot of times you're going to have situations where you have to make your nut. You have to be able to pay your insurance, be able to pay your maintenance, be able to pay your debt service on your mortgage. So naturally, the rent for the 17 market rate units is going to have to be higher to compensate and offset for the artificially depressed rents that you have on the rent stabilized units. The other problem, and this has been the subject of a lot of articles recently, as a result of changes in the law in New York in 2019, landlords of rent stabilized units are no longer able to increase rents as a result of capital improvements. And as a result, a lot of units, when they become vacant, it'll actually cost more for the landlord to improve the units so that it could be rented again than the landlord could ever make on it. And I've even seen some cases where it costs more money for the landlord to just keep the unit running. The carrying costs of a particular unit are greater than the rents that are permitted by law. So in those situations, it's actually cheaper for the landlord to just have a vacant unit rather than rent it out. And that obviously doesn't benefit anyone. The landlord is not getting revenue. And from the perspective of making more housing available, now you've just got a unit that is sitting vacant and it's not being rented. And it's very easy to blame landlords for this. It's very easy to say they're making a ton of money and they should put more money into the building, into the units. Now, in some instances, that might be true, but everybody acts in their own economic interest. Landlords don't buy buildings so that they can give back to the community. If you want to give back to the community, you're going to give charity. You're going to make donation. But if you're buying buildings, you're doing it as an investment. You're doing it to make money. And when the government interferes in that process, now you're taking a process that functions on its own independently, and you're having the government get in the way of it. While the objective here is noble, the process and the result just doesn't work.